morning he died, she went to every room. She did not cry, not yet. She just moved through the house slowly, the way you move when you're trying not to wake someone. In the kitchen, the small white clock above the stove. She reached up and stopped the hands. 10:47. In the hallway, the round wooden clock her mother had given them as a wedding gift. She stopped that one too. In the bedroom, the clock on his side of the bed, digital, still blinking. She unplugged it from the wall and put it in the drawer. In the living room, the tall clock that had been in his family for 40 years. The one that chimed on the hour. The one he used to say was the heartbeat of the house. She opened the glass door, reached in, stopped the pendulum with 2 fingers. The house went quiet in a way it had never been quiet before. She sat down on the floor in front of it and stayed there until it was dark. Her name was Ellen. She was 58 years old. She had been married to George for 31 years. They had met at a library. He was returning a book she had been waiting for. He apologized. She said it didn't matter. He asked if she wanted to get coffee while she waited. She said yes. That was all it took. For 31 years, he made coffee every morning before she woke up. She never asked him to. He just did. The morning after he died, she came downstairs. The kitchen was quiet and cold. The coffee was not made. She stood in the doorway for a long time. Then she made it herself, sat down alone, drank it looking at the stopped clock on the wall. 10:47. She decided that was fine. Time could stay there. The first year was the hardest. Not because of the grief, though the grief was enormous, shapeless, like weather that never changes, but because of other people. They came with food and flowers and careful voices. They sat in her living room and looked at the stopped clocks and said nothing. Or they said too much. They said he would want her to move forward. They said time heals. They said things that were true and meant nothing. She nodded. She thanked them. She waited for them to leave. When they did, the house settled back into its quiet, and she breathed again. She learned to live without time the way you learn to live without something you thought you needed. Slowly, then all at once, she stopped wearing her watch. She covered the clock on her phone with a small piece of tape. She ate when she was hungry. She slept when it was dark. She woke when the light came through the curtains. The seasons told her what she needed to know. Cold meant winter. Green meant spring. She read a great deal. She walked every day, the same route, through the park, past the pond, back along the elm-lined road they used to walk together on Sunday mornings. She talked to him sometimes, not out loud, just in her head. Small things, the way the pond looked that morning, a bird she had seen. It wasn't sadness exactly. It was more like keeping a conversation going. If you enjoyed this story, press like and subscribe for a new quiet story every week. I would love for you to be here. The second year, she planted a garden. George had always wanted one. She had always said they would get to it. They never got to it. She dug up the patch of ground behind the house herself. Her hands blistered Her back ached. She didn't mind. She planted things that came back every year. Roses, lavender, a small apple tree that wouldn't give fruit for a long time, but would give it eventually. She liked that about it. The idea that something was growing on a timeline she couldn't see or control. That it would fruit when it was ready, not before. The third year, a young woman moved in next door. Her name was Iris. She was 26. She worked strange hours and often came home very late. Sometimes she would see Ellen in the garden in the early morning and wave. Ellen waved back. One morning, Iris came to the fence. "I hope I don't wake you, coming home late." "You don't. I don't sleep much." "Me neither." They stood on either side of the fence for a moment. "Your garden is beautiful. It's getting there." That was all. But after that, they waved every morning. Sometimes they talked briefly about the weather, about the apple tree, about nothing important. Ellen found she didn't mind. The fourth year, she took down the curtains in the bedroom and washed them. She didn't plan to. She just looked at them one morning and thought, they need washing. While they were drying on the line, she stood in the bedroom looking at the bare window. The light came in differently without them. Brighter, more direct. She could see the garden from here. The roses, the apple tree, a pair of birds she didn't know the name of sitting on the fence. She left the curtains on the line a little longer than necessary. She stood at the window and watched the garden in the new light. It looked like something beginning. She didn't know what to do with that thought, so she just held it. The fifth year was quieter than the others. Not emptier, quieter. There is a difference. She finished books she had been meaning to read for years. She wrote long letters to her sister who lived far away. Real letters, on paper, in envelopes with stamps. Her sister wrote back. They had not written to each other in decades. It turned out they both had things to say. She kept walking every day. The pond, the elms, the route they used to walk together. She still talked to him sometimes. Less often now. Not because she missed him less, but because the conversation had changed. It was less about telling him things, more like just knowing he was there. The way you don't need to speak to someone who is sitting in the same room. It was an ordinary morning in November when she heard it. She was in the kitchen, making coffee. The light was gray and flat. The garden was bare. And then, a sound. She stopped. It was coming from the living room. A small, steady, rhythmic sound. Still, tick, tick. She set down the coffee and walked to the doorway. The tall clock, George's family clock, the one she'd stopped with 2 fingers 5 years ago, was moving. The pendulum was swinging. Slowly, steadily. She stood in the doorway and watched it. She did not touch it. She did not go closer. She just stood there while the pendulum moved and the sound filled the quiet house. Tick, tick, tick. The way a heartbeat fills a room when everything else is still. Later that morning, she went out to the garden. The air was cold. The ground was hard. Her breath made small clouds in front of her. She stood by the apple tree. It was bare now, just branches, no leaves, no fruit. But she knew what was inside it. She knew what it was holding, quietly, through the cold. She put her hand on the bark, stood there for a moment. Then she went back inside. She poured the cold coffee down the sink, made a fresh cup, sat down at the kitchen table, and listened to the clock. If you enjoyed this story, press like and subscribe for a new, quiet story every week. I would love for you to be here.